This is an answer to a question on dealing with habitual patterns of mind and of emotion, anxiety, and so on. So there's a number of approaches that can be taken to this. I've outlined an approach using the elements, but we need to ask ourselves right from the get-go, are we looking for a momentary salve in the moment through the environment in life, or are we looking for a path of spiritual evolution and growth? Because these are very different tracks that we take. If we're looking for a salve in the moment, there are innumerable techniques that can be used. Okay, one of the easiest ones I find is to take an object of thought that is preferable, and every time you're thinking about the thing you don't want to think about, use that as an opportunity to think about the thing you do want to think about. And you really sit down and you focus on the positive thing, the positive situation, the positive feelings. And you do that for, at least a couple minutes at a time, assuming that, this question is from someone who's quite busy. You might not have 2 hours to sit down and really consolidate your practice. So you do, you just do your best for a minute, right? Do your absolute best to focus purely, not just your mind on the idea of what that would be, but on the feelings of what that would be, on the way the body feels with what that would be. So you get some alignment mentally, astrally, physically, that helps you come into resonance with the new positive habit of thought. Now you're still developing a habit, so you're replacing one habit for another, but hopefully the habit that you're replacing, the new habit, the habit you're replacing the old one for, when you come into resonance with that physiologically, it helps you release, it helps you be more relaxed, less anxious, etc. Okay? Now, closure is something that many of us find tumultuous if we don't have it. Okay, so we seek closure in an experience due to insecurity. We're feeling a lack of stability and we're seeking stability. And so some type of environmental closure, a situation that allows us to feel like things have resolved, can help us to release. However, our release is conditional if we seek closure. Why? Because it is based on stability. And just like a chair, when you sit down, you can relax, right? It's easy to release. There's stability. If you're on, one of those exercise balls, and maybe that's on top of a slack line or something, if you just, you're gonna fall. So of course, there's a deep part of us that is looking for stability. And in an absence of environmental closure, situational closure to an experience, we can find that we force a type of closure. So we don't allow for that to arise. We try to make closure happen. And this can be damaging to ourselves and to other parties, right? And this again comes to the addiction to certainty and the comfort that comes from certainty. Now, there is a much greater piece that can come from embracing the unknown and embracing uncertainty. And this takes us down the spiritual development pathway, because that is a path of absolute eradication of all forms of stability that we might at any point try to cling to so that we can have, that feeling of relaxation. Okay? When it comes to the unknown, right, it's embracing that space to be, and I know embracing is like a clinging kind of word, but anyway, to be at peace in the space of uncertainty. This is where we go as we move through Wuji, through the Akashic paradox, through essentially the void, right? That which is timeless and spaceless is the ultimate instability. Yet the peace within that instability, that is of that instability, is far greater than any peace that is conditional, okay? Because it includes conditions and it includes non-conditions. So in the space of that instability, when we don't have closure, things don't make sense, the mind will very often try to find reasons for that feeling of, that feeling of falling. So the mind will try to find reasons. It will create stories. And some of those stories might have a lot of accuracy to them. They are still stories, right? As we go deeper down through the spiritual rabbit hole, all those stories, no matter how logical and accurate they might appear, they aren't why that feeling of instability is there. The instability, that feeling of instability is there because we have not yet recognized an essential truth and essence underlying all of that. And that is where we go on the spiritual path as we start navigating that realm. If our goal is to feel at peace and feel relaxed, we will never be able to evolve on the spiritual path. We might have a lot of success in worldly endeavors and managing our normal experience through techniques, but we won't be able to progress spiritually because some of the most existential stress and pain you will ever encounter, mentally, astrally, physically, happens in the depths of meditation, right? There is this paradox, and in our culture we like to ascribe certain meanings to things. Okay, meditation is for calm and relaxation. Nope. There are exercises, preliminaries to meditation, that can help with calm, that can help us relax. And in more advanced meditation, yes, absolutely, there is the most incomprehensible relaxation. However, there's also the most incomprehensible stress as you are coming into alignment with very, very potent, powerful, refined energies. The most pain you can ever be in, yet also the most peace. It is always a paradox, okay? So when you're in the space of the unknown, going back to the more situational experience, the mind will seek reasons for that. And we want to be able to acknowledge this seeking, okay? And not to berate ourselves for that seeking of stability, okay? The unknown is it's kind of like the goddess that's clothed in the garb or the mask of the demon, right? It might appear like that demon very ugly, that instability, but that is because we're seeking stability. As we ascend on the spiritual path, there you find the most incredible beauty. You go through the mask of that demon that's rearing its ugly head, and beneath that you find that goddess, that incredible divine something, non-somethingness underneath that. Okay? So a lot of this comes down to control fantasies, right? Why do we want the knowns? We're trying to control our feelings. Okay, so there is a secret part of ourselves, unbeknownst to ourselves, especially in the people-pleasery type of folks, that is trying to control the environment through kindness, trying to control the environment through helping, trying to control the environment by finding ways to be of value. There's just a plane going over right now, so it might be a touch noisy. So we'll wait, and hopefully some of you will continue watching the video. Okay, so the secret controlling, of the environment. It can very often seem, quite pleasant, right? Someone, you want to do things for people, you want to help, all this, that, the other thing, and you're actually trying to manipulate the environment around you to be accepted. Hey, and this is, goes back to that kid. I see this in healers all the time, in a lot of healers, a lot of spiritual folks who develop a lot of specific knowledge in the spiritual path or in the healing path. And so much of it, you can see that little child behind the words, behind all the knowledge, just looking for validation, that it's okay to be here, that you're welcome here. And to help ourselves feel that certainty of being welcomed in this space, it's okay for you to be alive, for you to be here, we try to prove that out through manipulations of the environment, through constantly being the helper, the person that is relied upon, or whatever it is, right? And I'm not saying these are bad things by any means. I'm saying learn your motivations, move beyond that, and then you can act however you choose in a helpful way without harming yourself. If your goodwill is impure in the sense that it is for your own validation, I'm helping so that I can feel like it's okay for me to be here, and hopefully through my helping, you will feel like you will feel like I should be here, and you'll want me here. That is a transactional that's a transactional action. So your help isn't to help. It has nothing to do with the other person. It has nothing to do with the patient if you're a healer, which is absolutely brutal. It only has to do with yourself. So hopefully if you're going to get into any healing or teaching, you can move beyond these more base stages of development so that you can do less harm to those that are coming to you for help. Okay? Now, when we look at that controlling of the environment, very often when the situation unfolds in a way that is not to our liking, we start to essentially, again, like whip ourselves and use that air element of the logical mind to try to figure out why things went awry and what the correct ways of engaging in all the little minutiae of the interactions, what those correct ways might have been to lead to the desirable outcome. Once again, we now are we're going through a fantasy of how could we have controlled every aspect of the interaction to get the result that we wanted. And to borrow from I think it was Shakyamuni Buddha, who said the law of cause and effect, or of karma, is so vast as to be incomprehensible. So when we look at experience and we look at everything that has led us up to where we are right now, it's very hard to not see that as perfect once we're able to get out of our own pain at the circumstances. Okay? And this perception of seeing the perfection of how cause has led to effect, which has been cause for further effect. Everything in all of ever has happened exactly as it happened, in such a way that has led to exactly now. This is not to excuse anything, nor is it to pedestalize anything. It simply is. And if we are working from the perspective of the spiritual path, we are uncovering truth. Each step of the way, we're going deeper into the truth, to simply see things as they are, absent from all the masks of ourselves and of others. And as you progress on the path, you can pierce the masks with your perception, not through trying, you see what's there. Okay? So when we look at, if we're having anxiety or depression or feeling ill towards ourselves based off how a situation turned out, well, this is because, once again, we're seeking stability, we're seeking certainty. Now, seeking clarity, we might say this is a near enemy of the actual truth, that truth space that can be inhabited and merged with. Why? Because clarity, once we figure out why something happened, it's conditional resolution, right? I see clearly why this happened. Okay, there's a feeling of resolution, just as with closure, you have that feeling of resolution, but then any relaxation is conditional. So we want to, through the spiritual process, find a resolution that is a-conditional or non-conditional beyond any and all conditions. And that is where and why we need to make the jump from the path of techniques to manage how we might feel in certain situations, in certain moments. We have to move from that track onto the spiritual track so that our peace, our tranquility, more accurate than these words would be our emergence with truth itself is a-conditional. Okay, so logic allows for release through understanding, just as concentration allows for release through stillness, just as feelings allow for release through motion. Fire, stillness, in a sense, water, motion. But you can also have the reverse. And earth through the stillness of the environment, right? These all allow for release through conditional effects, okay? So when we're moving through this, we have to start to look beyond conditions. And in order to find release beyond conditions, we can't be finding release based on anything. So this is why we go through this, not the only reason, but as we're going through the spiritual path, you encounter all these stages and exercises that help us to learn to look through different lenses, to pierce reality from different lenses, to allow us to start to look at the truth from this lens and this lens and this lens. And we start to see, it looks, every lens, it looks different. So how can I think it's this through this lens or this through this lens? You start to break your attachment to that which is, stability, to that which is the known. Because you can look at anything and see it from an infinite number of perspectives, and now through that breaking of the knowns, we are able to actually ascertain the truth, which has nothing to do with specific shapes or words of what this situation is or that situation is. The resolution that we are seeking in closure, that resolution is a conditional. That resolution can be of the truth space as we develop. And as this view overtakes us and permeates through the mental body, permeates through the astral body, permeates through the physical body, we start to become the space of resolution and the space of blossoming out of that resolution, that which blossoms out of the resolution. You start to become and inhabit that space that is spaceless, that time that is timeless. And this can have profoundly healing effects. So how do we get here? Well, in the beginning, you have those specific exercises to help you manage and navigate the environment. Then we have to move on to the spiritual path for this to actually become a different thing. You're no longer a human that's humaning as a human. right? You're moving beyond that into something with an expanse, a fractal of consciousness and identity that is so much greater. You're connecting with everything. Okay, now there's one more important thing to remember here, which is that, or potentially more than one, our physiology is very important. So if you can get a handle on your health, that will massively aid your abilities to move through this stuff with a little more ease. The skill we must develop, the refinement of skill we must develop in the absence of good health is quite monumental. Why is this? Because if your organs are shutting down, if your body is constantly in a state of physiological stress, then the mind will try to find and then will try to create reasons and stories for this stress, why it's there. And this will start to spin into all kinds of rationalization, the incessant thinking of the mind, and that activity which just makes the anxiety worse. You have all this incessant thinking, which is problem solving. There is a problem, but it's not that, right? The underlying problem is that you're in fight or flight all the time. So if you have good health, then you can start to, it provides a nice platform for some calm, right? Now, there are plenty of spiritual training mechanisms that help us along the path, and that is why we might engage in the process of, in the beginning of spiritual evolution. As mentioned, I don't know if in this video, but certainly before, any reason that we engage in the spiritual path is ultimately something that we will have to navigate beyond and let go of as we progress. Because every reason that we can possibly engage in the path for is in contrast to the place that you end up, or in contrast to that ultimate resolution and that spaceless space and timeless time, that eternal infinite truth. Okay, so this is not a video with a bunch of specific tools, but more so talking about how and why stuff functions in the body, stuff functions in the mind, stuff functions in the emotions. And there are videos looking at the elements, part of this little mini-series, that will help us to elucidate through the elements in a little more detail how we can work from the generation phase as we're building a mind, building emotions, building a body that might be more capable of handling environmental stimulus, and then moving beyond that. Because everything that we do when you're generating skills and generating qualities, all of that can be a near enemy to the truth space that we are winding our way towards. Okay, so I know this might have been a bit convoluted. I hope this was in some ways helpful, and we'll see you on the next one. If you're interested in training, please check out the website. There are upcoming courses, retreats, etc. So please stay tuned for that stuff. All right, thanks a lot. Have fun. Bye.